Welcome to a Thursday edition of Beyond the Arc. I'm John Gonzalez alongside my man from CBSSports.com. Sam Quinn is here. What's going on, Sam?
John, I'm tired. I had a late night writing, but we're here. We persevere. I feel a little weird complaining about I only slept 5 hours last night when we're just here. Our job is to talk about basketball. I think I'm okay. I think I can power through.
I like this about you. People, I feel the same way. Although I've had conversations with people about this. Are you a napper? Like most of the NBA, the players and the support staff and the coaches and pretty much everybody who's involved in the NBA takes naps during the day. And I have adopted that philosophy and it's fantastic.
I can't. My issue with napping is even if I'm out for half an hour, it totally resets my sleep schedule and it makes me want to stay up another 16 hours after that. So it ruins me completely. There's a part of me that's tempted, let's finish up here after we're done.
Yeah.
Go, knock out an hour and a half nap. Then if I do that, my sleep schedule for the rest of the week is just ruined.
Hour and a half is a little bit much for me. I'm really, the sweet spot for me is anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes. Drew Holiday was talking about how he was deep in a nap when he found out, his phone went off and he found out that's the time that he found out he got traded. So I fully embrace / endorse the afternoon nap, especially for our lifestyle.
Well, this is part of the problem, right? I don't want to take a nap and find out I've been traded NBC.
Yeah, I don't want that either. So stay awake. We'll make sure that you stay awake and stay at CBS. All right, later in the show, we're going to talk about the Knicks offense, just absolutely on fire. Isaiah Hartenstein came back last night. He looked amazing. Tyrese Haliburton, still broken. LeBron James quit social media, evidently. Amazon might want to reschedule the NBA Cup. We have so much to get to today. And also, Mickey Mouse and friends are playing on Christmas Day. Can't wait to hear what Sam thinks about that. And we'll do Team of the Night. But first, and we should also mention that Luka got hurt. He's got a wrist injury and he's going to miss some time, but he'll be reevaluated next week. And evidently the cops don't like that. They're coming for me and that news. But first, we're going to start with the Sixers. They lost again last night, Sam, to the Grizz. They are now 2-12. They've lost 5 in a row. They finally had their big three together on the court, and they lasted all of 2 quarters together because PG hyperextended the same knee. There's a lot of places to start here, but I'm going to start with this. Earlier this week, you wrote a piece for CBSSports.com saying it's not time to panic. 2 days later, is it time to panic?
I'm starting to inch in that direction. Now, if you look at the schedule the next few weeks, it's pretty easy. The only hard games on the schedule, they get the Rockets, but it's the second night of a back-to-back for Houston. They get Orlando twice, but they have some injury issues. Other than that, they've got a lot of lottery teams lined up in a row here now. I'm not at panic mode yet, but if they don't start rattling off wins really, really soon, we're going to get to a point where it's okay, at 25 games, if you're 4-21, that hole just becomes so big that you can't dig out of it, right? A lot of my optimism for Philly a few days ago was, well, they're in the East. They're 3 games out of the number 6 seed. Ultimately, that's not going to last forever. Eventually, some teams in the East are going to start to separate themselves in the standings beyond Boston and Cleveland, right? The 6th seed isn't going to be below 500 forever. They're running out of time to right this ship.
Yeah, you say it's not time to panic yet. You remind me of the keep calm and carry on sign. What are you doing, man? They're 2-12. It is well past time to panic over this team, especially because I was debating, are they just cursed and snake bitten or are they bad? And the answer is yes. The answer is both. They're both of those things. When you get PG and Maxey and Embiid on the court for the first time, and then PG immediately hyperextends the exact same knee, I mean, this is a disaster. The only guy, and we were talking about this with producer Aaron last night on the text chain, the only guy who's looked consistently good for this team is McCain, and I'll throw in Yabu too because you had mentioned Yabusele, but that's really it. I mean, McCain has been a revelation. Everything else has been a disaster.
Yeah, I mean, even in that first 5-minute stretch, which was really the only extended look that we got at Embiid, Maxey, and George together, I just kind of kept finding myself thinking, man, that's a lot of Jared McCain, isn't it? You have 3 All-Stars, including an MVP, and you're running a lot of offense through your rookie. And granted, he's probably the rookie of the year so far. I saw a stat earlier today that he has the most points any rookie has ever had in their first 4 starts. Very, very promising rookie. I might maybe not run that much offense through that guy. Yabusele looks really good, but the three is like it's at 41%. But some games you get 5 of 6, like you got last night. Some games it doesn't look nearly as good. I don't have a good answer here. The depth is really, really a mess. Like Eric Gordon does not look like he should be playing real NBA minutes anymore. Kyle Lowry not doing much of anything. Kelly Oubre having a really tough start.
We're talking about
I'm
the wrong
concerned.
stuff. Those guys only matter insofar as that Joel Embiid looks like Joel Embiid, and he did have a double-double last night. He had a game-high 35 points in 35 minutes, so a point per minute, +7. McCain was the only other plus starter from the Sixers last night. They're 0-4 since he came back. I was told, just wait till Joel Embiid comes back. Everything will be fine. Doesn't look that way. And on top of that, let me run this past you. So you and everybody else heard about the team meeting that was called the other night when Maxey called out Embiid for being tardy to certain things. Well, Embiid had some things to say about that last night, Sam. According to the Inquirer, he was asked about the meeting, and here's what he said about it leaking. He said, whoever leaked that is a real piece of blank. You could probably fill that in for yourself. But even then, we talked about a lot of things. I don't want to get into the details, but that whole thing that Maxey brought up probably took 30 seconds. He's got a whole bunch of other things here to say. It's Joel Embiid, so we've got to make everything blown out of proportion. I'm the reason for everything, so I'll take the blame for everything. What else? He says he doesn't understand why the negativity keeps following them, and it's annoying to have to deal with the same things over and over again. It's been like that my whole career. The vibes are bad. The team is bad.
As a general rule, if you're mad that something leaked, I think that's almost trying to be a distraction from the thing you did that got leaked in the first place, right? Like, I'm sorry, Joel, this wouldn't be a problem if you weren't late. That's kind of on you. I don't know what else to say.
Well, he said that part, the tardiness, maybe happened once or twice when I wasn't playing. So I need to be better. I need to be perfect. I need to be on point, which I'm going to do. Here's my favorite part, and which I've always done. So he acknowledges that he hasn't done it and then says he's always done it. It was a masterclass in interviews last night.
I mean, it's just one of the things where, like, he's now been the centerpiece of this team for the better part of a decade. I think this is his 9th season, I think, if you don't count the injury years.
Right.
They've never exactly, like, been a tight ship, right? Like, there's always something going on here. Like, I don't know what else to say at this point other than, like, you kind of have to look at the superstar of the team and say that he sets the tone for how the organization operates. Like, you don't tend to see leaks out of teams that are doing well and generally acting professionally, at least not to the same degree. If this keeps happening, you kind of have to look back at the star and say, like, maybe look inward, Joel, is all I'm saying.
I have mentioned this many times, but if you look over the last decade, from the beginning of the process to now, they have changed the general manager multiple times. They've changed the head coach multiple times. All of the pieces around Joel Embiid have been changed multiple times. The one constant over the last 10 years is Joel Embiid, and they have not gotten out of the second round. As it stands right now, they have the worst record in the NBA, the worst offensive rating, the worst field goal percentage, the second worst three-point percentage, the second worst rebounding team. They're bottom 5 in assist percentage. 106 teams in NBA history have started off 2-11 or worse. Only 8 of those have made the playoffs. Here's where we are right now, Sam. I'm looking at this team. I see PG get hurt again. I see their record, all the teams that they have to leapfrog. Yes, they're in the Eastern Conference, but it's looking really grim, both historically and like in the present moment. And I had said before, there's no way that they can tank and try to keep their first round pick because they owe a first round pick to Oklahoma City because Oklahoma City took Al Horford off their hands a couple of years ago. That pick is protected 1-6. To thread that needle would be very difficult. I am now considering, should they thread the needle and try to keep the pick and tank?
The issue with the tanking problem is you're going to have to you're going to have to like find reasons to bench at least 2 of the 3 stars for most of the year, because otherwise you have Washington at the bottom, you have Portland at the bottom. The Nets are going to get there. When you start hearing Cam Thomas trade rumors like 3 weeks into what was otherwise a promising season, you can kind of tell the Nets front office isn't super happy with the way things are going. Like, the teams that are actively like built to be at the bottom, I know some of them have won some games early on. The bar for getting into the top 6 is really, you want to finish in, say, the bottom 4 records wise, just to give yourself a little bit of a buffer if the ping pong balls don't go your way. Doing that if Tyrese Maxey plays 60 games, if Joel Embiid plays 55, that gets really, really hard because, man, the Wizards are bad. So
No, it would have to be
you have
a
to lean into it
situation.
now, and that's a really hard thing to do.
It would have to be a situation where it's shutdown city for Embiid, probably shutdown city for PG. I mean, the Fates are already taking care of that for the most part. Then it becomes what happens with Maxey, and is Maxey enough to keep you out of that? Again, it's a tough needle to thread, but in order to guarantee they keep their pick, they'd have to be a bottom 2 team in the NBA. If you're third worst, they'd end up with a 7% chance of shipping it out to OKC. If you're fourth worst, that increases to 20%. So 1 in 5. Now it starts to get dicey, right? If you're fifth worst or better, now you have a better chance of losing the pick than you do of keeping it. So yeah, you'd have to lose 2 of your main 3 guys for sure just to have a chance of keeping the pick. But the way this thing is going, it's happening organically anyway. I mean, they're just not a good basketball team. So this idea of, well, let's just run them out there and see if Embiid can figure it out. And he did look better last night. There's no doubt about that. But man, they are a tough watch right now. And it's a tough start to the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think better is the operative word there. He didn't look great, right? Like
No.
physically, I don't know if it's the knee brace. I don't know if it's conditioning. Like, he doesn't really seem to have any sort of like quick burst acceleration when it comes to like chasing a loose ball or making a rotation on defense right now. He was really reliant last night on getting to the line and making jumpers. I didn't feel like he had that same force that he had when he was averaging a point per minute last year. Like, generally, this is kind of the Joel Embiid pattern where he starts slowly across his first 10, 15 games, and then we get to the middle of December and suddenly he's Wilt Chamberlain. Well, considering all the time that he missed and everything else that's going on for Philly right now, if that doesn't happen until like New Year's or Christmas, the season could be like almost over by then. It's wasted their margin for error is what I'm getting at.
For sure. I can't believe that I have to talk you into being down on the Sixers. Come and join me. It's picking up steam over here. Let's look at the upcoming schedule real quick. Home against the Nets, Clips, and Rockets. Then they're at the Pistons and Hornets. Then they're home twice to the Magic. Then they're at the Bulls and home to the Hornets. Normally, this schedule, I'd go, this is pretty nice. This is a get-right portion of their schedule. Right now, there's really no team they can't lose to in the NBA. I don't look at this and think that this is a soft underbelly of the schedule and all of a sudden they're going to start creeping towards 500. I look at this and go, oh no.
If this really goes as badly as things have gone so far, if you make it through this stretch and you still only have a handful of wins, that's when you really do have to start thinking about tanking, because it doesn't get easier than this. And you're wasting these really winnable games at a point on the schedule when you yourself are not capable of winning them. What happens, a month later when you start playing the good teams and you still haven't figured it out for yourself? Like, again, I don't think tanking at this moment is necessarily viable, but once you get to the harder portion of the schedule that still haven't gotten right, that's when you kind of have to start acting like, okay, what is in the best interest of the organization? Does it make sense for us to bank everything on being like the 9 seed and going on some miracle run through the play-in, maybe upset Cleveland in the first round? Like, at what point does that not look viable? The danger of doing that, though, is like, I know Joel Embiid signed an extension. How comfortable is he with another lost season? I don't know. Like, do you have to start to worry at all about him maybe rumbling about a trade?
Asking out.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, all of these things are on the table now, right? I mean, considering how the season started, I wouldn't put anything past. If this was any other organization, I'd be like, okay, they're going to figure it out. Something will happen. It'll course correct. It's the Sixers. I mean, they find new and inventive ways to be an absolute abject disaster. And even by their standards, this is really impressive. All right, we're going to take a quick break. And then on the other side, we're going to talk about speaking of impressive, actually impressive, we're going to talk about the Knicks offense being super hot. Isaiah Hartenstein came back. And then we're going to get into what's going on with Tyrese Haliburton, who still doesn't seem right. That's coming up next. This is Beyond the Arc.
Yeah, wait a minute. Get it how you live it. 10 toes in when we standing on business.
The major prize at stake. The NWSL Championship, Saturday in primetime on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
All right, welcome back to a Thursday edition of Beyond the Arc. A reminder, you can find us wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Please download, subscribe, and leave a review. And on Spotify, if you look below the play button in full screen mode on the app, you can leave us a comment and tell us what you think about the show or leave us a question. The Knicks, Sam, this is speaking of upside down. If you had told me at the beginning of the season that the Knicks were going to be one of the best offensive teams and be not a very good defensive team, I would have said, question mark, what? They are second in offensive rating, 22nd in defensive rating. They throttled the Suns last night. For the second time in a row, they put up 130 points. It's the first time that they've had 130 points in back-to-back games in 36 years. 76 points in the first half, Sam. Are you buying this long-term?
I mean, the offense is not only really good, I think it's probably going to get better with time. I mean, the two-man game between Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns, other than Jokic and Murray, I struggled to find a better pick-and-roll combination in all basketball right now. I mean, they can do anything. It's so hard to defend Brunson going downhill because he's a true three-level scorer who can kill you in the mid-range, kill you with his floater, get to the rim, shoot the three. But then you pair in a big who A, can make threes, and B, is deceptively quick and skilled and crafty going downhill. There's no good way to defend that. I think they're going to get better when Mikal Bridges starts making any threes that aren't in the corner. I think they're going to get better when they get Mitchell Robinson back and can suddenly get some offensive rebounds. They're incredible now. I don't think they've come close to peaking yet.
No, I don't think so either. And you mentioned Jalen and Kat. They're the first teammates this season to have 30-point double-doubles in the same game. Their offense, that two-man game really is incredible. They're up to what, third place now in the Eastern Conference? No great shakes in the Eastern Conference, but still, they're sort of bumbling along earlier in the year. My question and I guess concern is that defense. Again, 22nd defense. This doesn't feel like a Tibbs team to me. He's got to be killing himself.
Yeah, I think defensively the big thing that's scaring me is Mikal Bridges does not look like Mikal Bridges.
Yeah.
He doesn't look like the guy who finished second in Defensive Player of the Year. I think, again, I don't want to bank too much on Mitchell Robinson coming back because injuries are just always going to be an issue for him. Having the ability to go two bigs is going to make a big difference for them down the line. And just having a really good rim protector off of the bench is going to make a big difference for them because Karl-Anthony Towns is just not a good rim protector. He's not a good defender, period. But the things he does well on defense are happening on the perimeter. They're not happening close to the rim. So getting Mitchell Robinson back goes a long way. The theory of this team defensively is that the perimeter defense outside of Jalen Brunson is going to be so good that you can protect Towns from having to deal with any of this stuff at the rim.
Right.
If Bridges is not that guy, then we kind of have to go back and reevaluate what we think this defense is going to be, because right now he's getting beaten off the dribble quite a bit.
Yeah, it ends up exposing Kat. When he's on the floor, opponents are shooting 14% better at the rim than when he's off the floor, so not great there. Just quickly while we're on this game here, the Suns now 1-6 without KD. Not looking great. Shams reported that KD and Beal could be back next week. I thought maybe if they could tread water a little bit, they'd be all right. But clearly KD is the engine that makes this thing go and cannot get back soon enough.
This is also kind of the on paper worst possible matchup for them. I mean, we saw this when the Knicks played the Bucks last year. If you put Jalen Brunson against a team with a slow big and bad point of attack defenders, he's just going to kill you in pick and roll every single time down the court. And the Suns are in the exact same boat, right? It's Nurkic, you can't really move, and their point of attack defenders across the board, except for Ryan Dunn, are mostly pretty bad. So I don't want to ring alarm bells off of last night, but yeah, the overall record without Kevin Durant is pretty concerning. But it's a little similar to Philly in that when you have these three huge salaries on your books, if you're without one of them, the current model of the NBA makes it so much harder to have the depth necessary to survive, right? You look at a team like Memphis, who's had guys in and out of the lineup all year.
Sure.
They're so deep that it hasn't really mattered. For Phoenix, if you don't have Durant, they're cooked. That's it.
Yeah, the Grizzlies, I think, won last night. I don't remember who they beat. While we're on the topic of the Suns, you and I try to talk this stuff with Bill, but it's not really his aesthetics of the NBA jerseys, stuff like that isn't really his bag. But you and I both hit on the same thing last night. The Suns lost, but boy, did they win with their City Edition floor and jerseys. These things are beautiful. What a classic throwback. Did you go through all the City Edition jerseys? Where did you have these?
Most of the City Editions this year, I think, were disappointing, and I'm just me being political about it. I generally dislike in any sport, but especially the NBA, where I think no sport is more dependent on logo, jersey, court, aesthetics in general than basketball. I don't like cycling in new ones every single year. I think the NBA has a real brand identity problem right now where it's really hard to watch a game and, like, just on a fundamental level, know who you're watching and feel connected to them. This was one of the big wins from this season. Like,
Oh
this
yeah.
harkened back to my favorite All-Star logo with the cactus. It feels very late 80s, early 90s to me, which I think is a great aesthetic period for the NBA. Just great work, no notes. Keep it up.
I think when you stumble onto something that works as an alternate jersey, you should be able to bring it back. Now we know why they don't, because they want to sell more merch, new merch, different merch, right? But the Sixers are bringing back, like, basically their Spectrum edition alternates that they had from a couple years ago, which I love. It's like it's basically like a slight tweak on those. Miami is a great example of this. They had those Miami Vice jerseys that were gorgeous, and then they scrapped them for this stupid heat culture thing. Like, what are we doing? You had a beautiful, gorgeous, like, pop, looks like Miami jersey, and now you've got this dumb heat culture thing instead.
While we're on this topic, there's nothing less heat culture than putting heat culture on a jersey, right?
Yeah.
Like, if your whole identity is, oh, we're so gritty, like we're so much tougher than you, announcing that to the world is exactly what that kind of team shouldn't be doing.
Well, anyways, everybody should check those out because they're really great. All right. Also from last night, I wanted to get into this with you. Isaiah Hartenstein came back. He was questionable last night, and then he comes back and man, he looks so good. Number one, I was surprised that he came back so soon. I thought it would be a little bit longer. And two, I didn't think he'd look this good. Sam, double in his return, 13 points on 50% from the floor, 14 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 blocks, 29 minutes. At one point, there was a play where he broke up an alley-oop at one end of the floor and then immediately went down to the other end and threw down an alley-oop. He looks fantastic. OKC already good, just got that much better.
Yeah, he checked in with 5:10 remaining in the first quarter. He left 8 minutes and 20 seconds later. In that span, the Blazers made 2 shots. I just, like, if you can, it's not fair to call him, like, transformative on a regular season basis for the Thunder, because they're going to have to figure some stuff out when Chet Holmgren gets back.
Yeah,
but,
that's
like,
my
I
question
think
too.
on some level, we underrated the acquisition because Chet is there. And we thought, like, oh, he's probably going to be a backup. We don't know how the fit is going to work. We don't know how many minutes he's going to play. Then he steps on the floor and you're just like, oh, we really overthought this. This guy is, like, one of the 6 or 7 best centers in the NBA, and he's a total luxury ad for them. He had 14 rebounds in the game last night. That tied the season high any Thunder had all of last year, and he did it coming off of the bench.
Yeah.
Like,
In
I
the
don't want to
first
say
game.
he's fixed their rebounding single-handedly, but he came about as close as any single player could.
He addresses the biggest need, both figuratively and literally, when I'm saying biggest need, right? I mean, like last year, they had a size issue, they had a rebounding issue. And part of me, I guess, was a little concerned about the fit with Chet, but now that I think about it, I think you're right. I think we're overthinking it. And it's a luxury ad where I think they'll be fine whether they're playing on the floor together or staggering them. But it's such a bonus for a team that is already really good and addresses like a major need area.
And, the defense and the rebounding are so important,
Mm-hmm.
but they kind of hide how important he's going to be on offense too. Like, that is a team that really needed another late shot clock option. So much of their offense is relying on, like, oh, we haven't created anything in 18 seconds, but SGA will bail us out, or Jalen will bail us out. Having that little flip shot in the middle of the court is going to be so important for them. His passing last night was
Underrated
so
passing.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And when you factor in the shooting that they have, like he's going to make them significantly better on both ends of the floor. I was so impressed with how well he played last night.
Yeah. OKC just got better. All right. Last individual thing that I wanted to run past you was Tyrese Haliburton. We were discussing this last night as well. I keep waiting for Tyrese Haliburton to look like some approximation of himself, and he really hasn't since he got injured last year. He had a bad post-injury regular season last year. His playoffs was definitely hit or miss. He didn't play in the Olympics, and then he came back this season, and I thought, okay, like he's going to be fine. He had an offseason and a nice little trip to Paris. It's going to be okay. He was 1 for 7 last night, 1 for 5 from 3. He scored 4 points and he had 8 assists. And I don't know what's going on with him.
He's taken 23 shots in the restricted area all season. Like, that's 23 dunk layup attempts. Like, this to me looks like a player who doesn't trust his body to hold up, especially through contact, but really anywhere on the court, right? Like, Haliburton was not really a get to the rim guy at any point in his career, but they played so fast and they played so free, and he just doesn't look like the same guy physically to me. There's so many stretches when you watch the Pacers where it's like, oh, I'm just going to defer to Andrew Nembhard. I'm going to defer to Benedict Mathurin. And it's like, look, these are good players. If you're a guy who at one point, like literally a year ago on the calendar, we were talking about as an MVP candidate,
Yes.
to defer to guys like that, it's just really concerning how uninvolved he is in the offense for long, long stretches.
That's also really notable. I mean, yes, a year ago, he was one of the best players in the NBA. He ends up as a selection for Team USA on one of the best teams ever built. And then this year, his usage rate has gone off a cliff. We have some numbers pre and post injury. My guy, Zach Cram from The Ringer, did a story on this last week. Pre-injury, he was scoring 23.6 points per game. These are courtesy of The Ringer. This season, Sam, look at that, 16.1 assists per game have fallen from 12.5 to 8.5. He went from shooting 60% on twos to 50%. He went from shooting 40% on threes to 29%. His true shooting percentage has fallen off. And then there's that usage rate, 26 to 22. I mean, it's just completely a different player. And look, without him playing like, even post-injury from last season, his numbers were better than they are this year. The Pacers are dead on arrival if he doesn't start looking like himself again.
I mean, we knew about the hamstring that kept him out last year. He's also had perpetual back issues. Back issues are probably the single injury that scares me more than anything in basketball. Like, I know we like to joke about Ben Simmons on this podcast. Like, all of the, mental health stuff aside, I think the back injuries were really what doomed Ben Simmons. It hasn't gotten that bad for Haliburton yet, but having back problems in your mid-20s when you're this young, you're right at the beginning of a 5-year supermax contract, like, that's a major red flag for me.
Yeah, it's not great. By the way, your guy Ben Simmons finally scored in double digits the other day.
I'm telling you, man, like, get on the bandwagon.
I am not.
This penny stock is turning into a nickel stock.
It is. It's just you on that bandwagon. All right, one more break, and then on the other side, some things from around the NBA that we're going to discuss, like Amazon maybe wanting to tweak the NBA Cup. I know you have an idea for that as well. LeBron says he's done on social media, and then Mickey Mouse is going to be part of Christmas Day. I can't wait to hear what Sam thinks about that. We'll talk about that next. This is Beyond the Arc.
Saturdays at 3:30.
It's big time.
It's big time. Saturday on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
Welcome back to Beyond the Arc. Be sure to join us live on YouTube Monday through Friday. We go live noon Eastern. You can find us at Beyond the Arc CBS. Please hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. And there's a little bell symbol there. If you click on that, you'll get notified when we go live. We've been doing some post-game shows too, so that'll be a little help for you. All right, Amazon NBA Cup. So when the new rights deal kicks in, Sam, Amazon's going to have the semifinals and the finals. And according to some comments by the Amazon head of sports programming at the Sports Business Journal conference, they said that the company and the NBA have had, quote, active discussions to move the cup back so that it coincides with the end of the NFL season, because Amazon has Thursday Night Football through the first 17 weeks. So this would potentially put the cup into that same window as trade season. So absolute chaos is what they're looking for the cup. Is this a good idea before we get yours?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think ultimately you want to use this event as kind of a springboard into the rest of the season, right? Like, so far in these first 2 years, they've tried to use the NBA Cup as something to like drum up early season interest in the NBA. I think the reality that we're finding in the sports landscape is that just nothing is going to compete with the NFL. If you try to make counter programming for the NFL and to a lesser extent college football, it's just, you're going to come up short. If you move this back, at least then you can kind of say like, hey, casual sports fan, We know that the football season is ending. Let us showcase our product at its best so that when football ends, you guys know where to go.
Yeah, here's my question though. There's already a lot of stuff going on in that window NBA wise, right? You've got trade season, you've got All-Star. As Aaron points out, you could potentially have more players being out. Then all of a sudden the playoffs are coming up. Are you going to run the cup right into the playoffs? It's like a double playoff situation.
Well, I mean, you bring up all these other things that are happening as this is going. I say you lean into that a little bit. What if you had All-Star Weekend coincide with the end of the in-season tournament and you did it all in one host city? So, like, say the in-season tournament championship is Saturday, then the All-Star game is Sunday, and you kind of make it one big mid-season extravaganza. I think that could be a lot of fun, and I think it's something that could really serve as like a mid-season launching pad for casual fans to be like, wow, the NBA has all of this stuff happening right now. And then the trade deadline is right after or something. Like that could be a real jolt for them in the middle of the year that builds excitement that can carry into the playoffs.
Yeah, I guess in theory, but then I'm wondering, like our big time, the All-Star game is already broken. Our big time stars who somehow end up in the NBA Cup final, all of a sudden going to want to play the very next day, or whenever, however you stagger it in the All-Star game, or are we just scrapping the actual game?
Well, we've already scrapped the actual game, right? I'd love to live in a world where the Stars take the All-Star game seriously, but they don't. So if it is a back-to-back to them, like they're going to jog up and down the court and fire up threes for 5 minutes like they're already doing. So look, if we have a better fix for the All-Star game, I'm absolutely here for it. But until we have one, I think we kind of just have to assume that the All-Star game is going to be what it is anyway.
On the one hand, I think like tinkering with it and signaling that you're not going to compete with the NFL makes sense, but it's not really so much the NBA deciding that they're not going to compete with the NFL as their business partner, their TV rights partner, their streaming partner, Amazon. It's the tail wagging the dog here because they already have the NFL and they're going, okay, well, we just want to have more programming afterwards. We don't want to have concurrent overlapping programming, which I guess if you're going to pay that money, you should have some say in it. But it's really your corporate business partner determining what's going to happen here.
I mean, I think that there's some validity to that. All I would say is the NBA Cup is not some sacred event, right? Like, by all means, you can experiment with it. And if you try it in January for a year or two and it doesn't work, well, then move it back to November. Like, let's experiment with this. Let's get it right. I think that's kind of the benefit of this being as new as it is. I mean, we talked, whether it was last week or 2 weeks ago, about all of my ideas for like really revamping it and making it its own thing. But I'm just in favor of let's get weird and let's experiment and this is not something that's really solidified in the mind of basketball fans yet. Let's take advantage of that and try stuff.
You mentioned let's get weird. Speaking of that, I wanted to run past, apparently yesterday we found out that there's going to be something called Dunk the Halls on Christmas Day. And that's a Knicks Spurs game. So on Christmas Day, Mickey Mouse and, his friends, I guess, will be part of an alt broadcast. It's Sony's Beyond Sports Technology. At halftime, there's going to be a Disney character dunk contest. Goofy's going to see how many churros he can eat. Santa's going to be involved somehow. They're doing, the NFL has been doing this for a while now. They're going to have a Simpsons Monday Night Football broadcast coming up. They've had a Nickelodeon simulcast previously. Now the NBA is getting in on the action on Christmas Day. What do you think of this?
Yeah, the NBA had a Marvel game. I think it was a few years ago. It was the Warriors and the Pelicans, I think. I like the concept of these alt broadcasts just because they, inject a little bit of, the NBA can get a little bit monotonous in the regular season. So by all means, let's mix it up a little bit. They're really opening the door to some memes here. I don't think Mickey Mouse specifically is a brand that the NBA wants to attach to itself, just given the bubble. And also just while we're at it, is there much of a brand attachment to Mickey Mouse in general? Right? Like Mickey Mouse is not some beloved character in the sense that with the Avengers, we say, oh, the movies are going on. Oh, The Simpsons has been on for 35 years. Sure. Mickey Mouse is more of a logo than a character. So are people going to want to tune in on the basis of well, Mickey's going to be there? Are people that attached to Mickey?
Yeah, I wish The Simpsons was doing the NBA thing. It's just an ABC thing, right? It's an ABC Disney thing. That's why they're doing it. That's why they're landing on it. Big time.
Oh, we have some stuff to talk about later. But anyway.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. We won't turn this into a Simpsons broadcast, but yes, absolutely. Last thing for you. I've been trying to convince you to get on Blue Sky along with the rest of NBA sports media that's been sort of ported over there. You're still dragging your feet a little bit on this, but concurrently while this is happening, LeBron James has decided not only is he not getting on Blue Sky, but he's done with social media, period. He says he's getting off of it for the time being, and y'all take care. Are you buying this? He loves to jump on social media.
I would not be surprised if LeBron was the next big name to make the jump to Blue Sky after an appropriate period of break. Just because if LeBron says that he has to go through the motions of it for a little bit, I feel like people have long since forgotten this. Shaq joining Twitter was like a really big moment for Twitter as a company that really legitimized it. LeBron eventually making the jump to Blue Sky could maybe have a similar effect, but yeah,
Sam Quinn to make the jump first.
I'm laying the groundwork for LeBron James, as I do in so many areas of life.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think this is something that's going to last forever. I mean, just to be blunt about this, LeBron is too big of a cultural figure and businessman to be getting off of social media entirely. Like, he's leaving money, he's leaving impressions on the table. So I don't think he's going to do it forever, but yeah.
Although I get it, like taking a little mental health break, I don't blame him. But yeah, you're right. He's probably leaving some dollars on the table.
I've had similar thoughts. Like, NBA
Yeah,
Twitter, I mean, you can tell me because you're on Blue Sky. Like, is Blue Sky better as a medium for discussing basketball? Because Twitter lately has not been super fun.
Yeah, I would say that, yeah, it's a more enjoyable experience for sure. Howard Beck, who I used to work with at Sports Illustrated, he's now over at The Ringer. He's president of the Basketball Writers Association. He's sort of been like the Walmart greeter for this thing. Like somebody will pop on, somebody new from the NBA, from NBA media, and Howard will like shepherd them through meeting everybody in Blue Sky and making sure everybody follows them. So yeah, it's been a more enjoyable experience, I would say. I would encourage our listeners and you as well to come and join us.
I'm keeping an open mind towards it. Like, I would say maybe at some point in the near future, I consider making the jump.
Bill did it a couple of weeks ago. I'm trying to get Aaron on there too. We'll get the whole team on there. Let's wrap up with team of the night. Who you got from last night?
I want to talk about the Rockets for a second, who
Okay.
are pretty deceptively. They're 11-5. They should be 12-4. There was a last 2-minute report from their Bucks game that showed Giannis stepped out of bounds before their game-winning shot. Like, they are one bad call away from being the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. They're 5th in net rating. Things are going so well for the Rockets right now that we got a report from Kelly Iko of The Athletic that they're not interested in breaking up their young core to trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yeah.
When you're publicly signaling, yeah, we're good, we don't need Giannis, I think that means you probably feel pretty good about where you are. Like, it's still early. We can't sit here and say they're going to be the number 3 seed at the end of the year, but everything is going right for them right now. And like, I think they've flown under the radar. I don't know how much longer that's going to last. Second
Second time the Rockets have been team of the night so far this season. I don't think that they're really under the radar anymore. Last year, I was an early adopter of the Houston Rockets, and Bill and Ash kind of made fun of me a little bit. And then this season, I had picked them to be a solid top end play-in / playoff team when the playoffs roll around. They're exceeding all those expectations. You're right. When you get to a point where you're like, hey, previously this offseason, we were kind of sniffing around KD. And then all of a sudden everybody was like, well, okay, the Bucks are stumbling a little bit here. Wouldn't Giannis make sense as a landing point in Houston? And Houston going, I don't know. I don't think that we need to pull the trigger just yet. This is one of those situations, Sam. They're kind of like an OKC light in that they could make a move, but they don't necessarily need to because they've got some really intriguing young pieces and they're set up well, not just for right now, but for the future. I wrote this last night, the position they find themselves in. Like, when you hear a team publicly signal, oh, we're not interested in that star, to me, that just is leverage, right? Like, of course you're interested in Giannis. You might be interested in Giannis based on price, but you are interested in Giannis. Playing this well when you're this young, it gives you so much leverage because you can go into those negotiations and say, like, no, we're not the team that had the worst record in the NBA 3 years in a row. We're good. We're better. Yeah. Like, we don't have to do this. We can wait for the guy who fits better. We can wait for the guy who's younger. We can wait for the guy who specifically says he wants to be in Houston. That's the luxury all of this winning buys you. I think eventually Houston will take a big swing for a star.
I just don't think they have to be in any rush to do it because they've looked so good early on.
They've been fun to watch too. They're a little like a Swiss Army knife. Every night I'm like, how are they going to pull this one out? And then, they're mixing and matching with these different combinations of lineups. And yeah, they've been a delight. Also a delight. And this one was something I didn't see coming because I was bullish on the Rockets. I was less certain going into the season about the Golden State Warriors. They keep rolling, man. They smacked the Hawks last night. They're my team of the night. They went 13 deep again. All the starters. This is the most impressive part, and I think the smartest part about Steve Kerr sticking with this whole like hockey rotation. We're going to run everybody out there. The starters played 30 minutes or less. If you're trying to keep your guys fresh for the postseason or deep into the regular season, this is the first time Golden State Warriors really. That's producer Aaron is telling me it's the first time the Golden State Warriors have been the team of the night this season, which is kind of surprising to me. But just keeping his guys healthy and fresh, and Steph only having to play 30 minutes, and them running the Hawks off the floor last night. Sam, they held the Hawks to 97 points last night. That's a team that's averaging almost 115 points per game.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really is a testament to the depth that Mike Dunleavy built that you can get away with playing Steph Curry 30 minutes a night, right? Like in the past, like throughout the entire dynasty era, even when they had Kevin Durant, you beat Golden State when Stephen Curry went to the bench. Like the net rating disparity through all the years, every year it was like, oh, they're 14 points per 100 possessions better when Steph is on the floor. Oh, they die by 17, whatever it is. Like it's always some big double-digit number. This year, they've been so good with Steph on the bench that they've been able to get away with only playing him 30 minutes. Now, do I know that that's going to last the whole year? Like, I'm skeptical losing DeAnthony Melton for the season.
Yeah,
that's a pretty significant loss. But when, like, Lindy Waters is giving you good, solid starter minutes, that makes a big difference, right? It's not even just the big names they added in the offseason. It's like everybody who has worn a Warriors jersey this year has been a positive contributor in the minutes that they've gotten.
Yeah, they've been outstanding. So team of the night for them. First time since we started the leaderboard. Before we wrap up here, what do you have cooking over at CBSSports.com?
I got not quarter season. I've got 1 month awards tomorrow. That'll be fun. I think you can predict some of them, like shocker, Nikola Jokic is going to win MVP. Some of them are a bit tougher. So let's chime in and let's see how that goes.
Okay, fantastic. Go and check out all of Sam Quinn's stuff over at CBSSports.com. And then tomorrow, be sure to come and join us on YouTube. We're going to be live at noon Eastern. Bill and Brad Botkin will be here for Brad's bold predictions. I got to do that with him last week. He's always got some fun ones, so be sure to check that out. But for now, for Sam Quinn from CBSSports.com, I'm John Gonzalez. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next time.